Hi everyone, I'm Brian. This is Rob. We're at Serus Gaming. Today we're doing a deck tech of
Mardu Dragons.
Mardu Dragons. So, where did you get this deck from?
Well, pretty much I was going through a phase where I couldn't figure out what I wanted to play in Standard, and so I went through every possible option I could play, which was I went through Abzan, I went through Esper Dragons, I went through, I think I played Mono Red for a little bit, and I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to play. So I went on to Star City and I looked at the top 8 deck lists that were posted for the week, and I saw this deck, which was, I believe it got like 4th or 3rd at one of their events, and I thought this was a pretty sweet deck, so I decided to buy the stuff I needed for it, and I put it together, and that's how I pretty much came up on this.
It does look pretty awesome. What's the game plan? It's called Mardu Dragons. But I see in here that there's Rabble Masters, there's Seeker of the Ways. So you have kind of early game, or kind of getting into dragons. That's your game plan, is the dragons?
Yeah, so that's one of the cool things about playing this deck is, for the past 2 months I've been playing this, I've found that you can actually play almost every style of deck with just this one. So you can play a really aggressive deck with curving out things like Soulfire and Seeker into your Rabble Masters, and then just like tempoing your opponent out of the game with like your removal spells and your Thoughtseizes to protect them. Or you can play this really good mid-range game where you use your early drops to kind of like defend against the aggro decks, and then get into your big guys, which are like your Kolagans, your Thunderbreaks, your Stormbrats, and then just let these guys pretty much steal the game.
Yeah.
And then you use your Foul Tongues and your Crackling Dooms to like gain life if you're low, or kill their guys, just stuff like that.
Yeah. I really like the removal suite. I think Crackling Doom, obviously we all know, is really good right now. You have the Foul Tongue, and then you have the Roar for the early game stuff. One thing I noticed is the Kolaghan's Command 1 of. How do you feel about that? Does that slot change much? Is it always Kolaghan's Command?
Okay, so Kolaghan's Command is one of the cards in the deck right now that I'm having big issues with. I actually just don't know if it's right for this deck, but whenever I play against Esper Dragons or control-y mid-range decks, that card is always an all-star. So being able to return a guy that they kill or counter, putting it back in your hand, and then like making them discard a card, or dealing 2 damage to them, or blowing up a Perilous Vault, like, it feels really good to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like in the format we're in right now, this card is as relevant as it used to be. Because back when Perilous Vault control was really big, that card was amazing.
Yeah, certainly.
But now Perilous Vault doesn't see as much play, and sure, you get to bring back a guy and put it back into your hand if they kill it or counter it, but against a lot of matchups, like, that's one of the first cards to get sided out.
Okay, so saying that, let's say I decided to build this deck right now.
Okay.
And I ask you, hey, and you tell me that I'm not sure about this card. Do you have any? Do you know what you would want to try out? Do you have any idea what that slot could be?
I do have a couple options that I've wanted to try. One of them being Mardu Charm. I really think that card is underplayed right now, and I think it's really good. Like, just being able to Flame Slash something, or being able to like Vendilion click your opponent in their draw step. Like, it's so good. And then also against like the really aggressive decks like Mono Red or Tarka Red, when they go to attack you, you can Mardu Charm for the 2/1/1 first strikers, and then just like blow them out.
Yeah, it does have a lot of versatility.
Yeah, it's really good, and I feel it's really underplayed. And I think right now that's probably one of the switches I might be making soon.
Okay, cool.
If not Mardu Charm, I've also wanted to play Hero's Downfall in this deck, because as you can see, there isn't really a way to deal with Planeswalkers outside of attacking them, or like, if you can like happen to burn them with a Draconic Roar and like Crackling Dooms or something, like, that helps, but you don't really have a way to just get rid of it.
Yeah.
So it's not really that big of a problem. I've never really had issues with Planeswalkers, but it is an option.
Yeah, certainly. Elspeth does seem like she can be a little annoying.
She can be, but one of the good things about it is you're playing 6 hasters.
Yeah.
So if they're forced to use the Elspeth -3 to kill your flyers, you can just like sandbag one of your Kolaghan's or your Stormbrats to just slime at the turn after, and then like kill her.
Yep.
So that's kind of the reason I think why this deck doesn't need the Hero's Downfalls, because it puts their Planeswalkers into really awkward positions. And it makes them need to use modes they normally wouldn't want to be using at that time.
Agreed. Okay, so one other thing about the main board, 2 Soulfire Grandmaster. So when I see a 2 of, you have it with Kolaghan, but I understand that. Usually 2 of is like, I don't need 4 of, but you want to have at least more than 1 of. What role is this really important in the deck? It seems like it's really good. Do you want to stay at 2? Have you ever thought about going up or down?
I've actually thought about switching some of the Seekers out for some of the Soulfires, just because like this card with Draconic Roar or Crackling Doom is absolutely insane. Like being able to gain 6 life off a Draconic Roar, revealing a dragon and killing one of their guys, or buy back a Draconic Roar, or like casting Crackling Doom, gaining 2 and then bashing them for 2, gaining another 2. Like those are all just really good plays out of this deck. And there's such huge tempo swings that it's really hard for people to come back from things like that.
Agreed.
One of the other things I like about this card is I've been in positions where I can actually like use 5 mana with her and like buy back Thoughtseizes and then just like attack with her. So like I can cast Thoughtseize, buy it back, and then attack for 2, essentially giving me free Thoughtseizes. So like things like little niche things like that are like really good. But I don't know if it's worth going up to 4, just because she's always a 2/2. So in some matchups, she's just bad.
But she is good enough that you would not consider cutting her.
No, I wouldn't cut her at all.
That's what I thought. So let me ask you this. It's kind of weird looking at a deck like this where you have such good early game pressure with high-end dragons. So let's say I'm playing Esper, and I have 1 Thoughtseize in my hand. You only have 3, so I don't have the full 4, so I know I have 3 in the deck. My opening hand is a Thoughtseize with like a Seeker of the Way. Do I want to make sure I protect the Seeker of the Way, or do I want to save that to protect the Storm Breath later on?
That really depends. Sometimes if I feel like my opponent's on a really clunky hand, or I feel like they keep loose, like you can usually tell those things just by looking at somebody. Like if they look at their hand for a couple seconds and they're like it really influences the way I play. So if I feel like they're on a really clunky hand, or they're on a mulligan, like to 6 or 5 or something, usually leading with Thoughtseize into your 2-drop is a lot better, because now it's like you're setting your opponent back on another mulligan, taking their best card. So they pretty much kept the mulligan they didn't even want to keep. And then you get to play a threat and then force them to have to deal with that threat. And if you want, you can start putting more threats onto the board, like Rabblemaster. So if you have like a 2-drop into Rabblemaster with that kind of a start, you pretty much just can't lose. And but there are other times where I feel like you lead with the Seeker or the 2-drop or the Soulfire, and then you Thoughtseize the turn after. So you're essentially forcing the removal spell or the counter spell, and if they kill your guy, then that's fine. You still took a removal spell for your Storm Breath, so you get to Thoughtseize 2 cards essentially. And like those, when that happens, it just feels really good, because then you have a Thunderbreak or a Storm Breath in your hand, and you're like, this guy's gonna do a lot of work.
So any concluding thoughts about the main board? Anything else?
The main board I feel is really well suited to combat the meta right now. Mono Red and Atarka Red have both fallen off the grid, and that's probably like one of the worst matchups for this deck, just because they like to go wide, and this deck doesn't go wide, it just goes big. So that's probably like one of the worst matchups. Any other deck I sit across the table from, I am not afraid to play. I always feel like I'm very well positioned to win that match, no matter what I'm sitting across from.
Okay, well let's talk about the sideboard now. Okay, so you just said that one of your worst matchups, Atarka Red. So I noticed you went full on for Anger of the Gods. Is that helping?
That's probably one of the best cards in my sideboard against them. The reason this card is here is because a lot of the aggro decks right now are not trying to go wide. They're trying to be more attrition-y.
Yeah.
So they want guys that are gonna like stick around, or guys they can bring back somehow.
Yeah.
Cards like Den Protector, Death Mist Raptor, Rakshasa Death Dealers,
Yeah.
Fleecebane Lions, cards like that. They all just fold to Anger of the Gods.
Yeah, certainly.
So any deck that is playing on those plans, usually this card just comes in at the full 4 of.
Yeah.
Because this card is just absolutely nuts against them.
Yeah.
It's kind of in here as like a fold to mono red. Like I just have to have something against them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of just why that's here. But it's honestly in the sideboard because of Den Protector, Death Mist Raptor, Rakshasa Death Dealers, cards like that.
Yeah. I really want to ask you about this, and I talked about this a little bit before. One, Dragonlord Kolakhan.
Yes.
How is that working out for you?
Dragonlord Kolaghan is awesome. He's essentially just another threat that you can bring in like the really long games. So against like Esper Dragons, you can bring him in as just another hasty guy who just hits them for 6. And also he's really good in like the Red-Green Dragons matchups because all they do is play 4-ofs of every creature in their deck. So if you can get a Dragonlord Kolaghan out against them, they usually just can't beat that card.
Yeah, certainly.
So, and I mean, if you're not familiar with what the guy does, pretty much he gives all your other guys haste, and he himself has haste and flying. And if your opponent plays a creature with the same name, creature or planeswalker with the same name as one in their graveyard, they take 10. So usually, like this guy alone just shuts down that deck.
Yeah.
And
that's a pretty beefy ability there.
it's just so good. It's just so good.
And just for fun, 6 power
Yeah.
on haste.
It's just for 6 mana, you can't like just the body alone. Like flying haste, give all your other guys haste for 6.
Yeah.
Like that's just already such a good rate.
Yeah.
Like the other ability is pretty like even if this card didn't have that ability, I'd probably still be playing it.
Yep.
So
So then, I mean, pretty common, the one thought sees, you got the Crux in there. You have one more Kolaghan's command.
I do.
Feeling good about that in the side? I know you were kind of unsure of main. but
I'm
in
still
the side,
kind of unsure about it.
issues.
It's pretty much just coming in against the decks that I mentioned earlier, which are like Esper Dragons,
Yeah.
or like the really grindy control like matchups. That's really only the reason this card is coming in.
Okay.
It has the mode where it can like kill guys or deal 2 to something.
Yeah.
But 3 mana for that effect is like not the greatest.
Yeah, so against a Rabble Master, it's probably a little too late.
Yeah, so this isn't really all that great in those kinds of matchups, but really good in the attrition-based matchups.
Yep. And then we have the card drawing for the grindier things.
Yes, this is what I was saying earlier about that the deck can play like a, I think I mentioned it, but this deck can play every archetype of deck out there, which is why I like this deck. So out of the sideboard, I can play a really control-y game, bringing in cards like Wreath of Bones and Outpost Siege and Elspeth, and taking out my really weak cards, usually which are Rabble Masters, and pretty much you play a bigger game.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. Yeah, it's
Big or go home.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
So you pretty much just try and go bigger than your opponents, especially like in the Absent matchups or against the Red-Green matchups and the Esper matchup. You want cards like this to help you stay in the game because it's all about card quantity, not essentially quality.
So saying that, the last card we haven't talked about yet is the Mastery.
Okay.
So liking it, I presume after you just said that you want to go a long grindy game, you're liking that?
Yeah,
that
this card actually I only bring in against control.
Okay.
I don't really bring it in against the Absent variants just because they can play Jamoka's command, and the enchantment removal is really huge. So I don't want to get blown out by playing or by bringing in a card I think is going to be good, and then now I'm wasting a slot in my deck for something that could have been better.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's really the only reason. It's not that great against red-green because you want to be racing them.
Yeah.
You don't want to just be trying to attrition them out because they can do it better than you can. So you just want to race them with like your big guys in the air. And against mono red, it's just too slow.
Yeah.
So you pretty much just want that card against like Esper Dragons or blue-black or anything like that.
Okay. Are you comfortable not having duress?
I'm actually very comfortable not having it.
Okay.
Usually my game plan requires that my opponent has answers to everything I do. So in order for that to happen, I have to consistently play threats, turn to turn.
Yeah.
And if I'm wasting slots on things like duress in order to take answers to my threats, then I'm giving up those slots for actual threats.
You want them to be on their back foot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
So that's pretty much why I don't play that card.
What, I mean, we've pretty much gone over the certain, what you're bringing in against, you know, we have the grinder setups, we have the Atarka Red. Anything you want to expound on that? Any?
The only thing I think a lot of people don't realize is that when you're sideboarding with this kind of a deck, Rabble Master is a good card. Like, it's a really good card right now. And the reason I like him is because they have to waste a remove on him, or else he just goes in check and then takes the game. Like, he just steals the game on his own. But Rabble Master is terrible on the draw.
Yeah.
You never want to have that guy in your deck on the draw. You'd rather have other cards that do better things. Just because they can go like turn 2 Rakshasa or Fleecebane Lion or Sylvan Caryatid, something along those lines, and then it pretty much just nullifies your Rabble Master.
Yeah.
Because now your 1/1 that you're making is just gonna die every turn to their blocker.
Yeah.
Which means Rabble Master's not doing his job.
He's just sitting there as a 2/2 that can't.
Exactly. So you'd rather just have better cards in that spot. Going in on the play, I usually sideboard out dead cards and then bring the Rabble Masters back in order to apply more pressure.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
that's pretty much like the only thing I do with the deck, like very often. Rabble Master usually comes out every matchup, and then comes back in on the play.
Okay, so anything else? Are we?
I highly suggest giving this deck a try. It's really good. I'm very comfortable with this style of deck, and even if somebody wasn't comfortable with the style of deck, I would still push this deck on them. Just because it's really easy to pick up, and there's not really a lot of like hard decisions you have to make. There are some tricky decisions, but it's nothing like that somebody who's semi-newer to the game or competitive style play wouldn't be able to grasp. So I definitely think this is a really good deck. If Atarka Red starts getting really popular again, I probably would try and stay away from this, or I would include Bio Blights or something in the main board to help combat that. I don't know about main board, but because it like helps.
Yeah,
so yeah, although Soulfire Grandmaster in this is like nuts.
Blow out.
So it's pretty good. So
Okay, cool. So we good?
yeah.
Okay.